Steve the Homer True is an American sportscasting icon, the voice of the Marquette Golden Eagles since 1989, approaching 1,000 games. But his greatness lies in the kind of person he is. We'll get into that later on. Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the MarquetteHoops.com basketball show with the great John Dodds and the Homer. We're produced by Jason Ruck. I'm Tom Pippins, and buddy, it's great to have you with us. Thanks for coming in studio.
Little upset.
Oh, yeah?
That was a pretty negative intro.
Was it?
Expect better than that.
We'll work on it. We'll work on it. One of these days
My mom isn't even that nice to me.
I'll get to like you one day. It'll get even better. Hey, this show is brought to you by, well, we know who it is, John. Moonlight Graham, Modern Dental Benefits. Moonlight Graham, the proud sponsor of this program. Craig Caston, you are the best. All right, JD, I know you've got enough for Homer to last about 1,000,000 years, but I want to start this way. Shaka Smart, Marquette, the 22-23 season. What did you think? How fun was it for you and Tony Smith, your color Allen?
It was fun because they won, but there's nothing better than winning when you don't think the team's going to be that good. I can't remember the last time. I defer to the historian because I can't remember last week. I can't remember the last time a team was so much better than anticipated it. And, of course, Tyler Kolek will live forever with his comment when they picked him ninth in the Big East. But I don't remember. And so to win is great. When you don't expect to win, it makes it even better.
Shaka, how important was he to the team? How great is he for this school and this basketball program going forward?
Yeah, you'll have to get Tony Smith on because he always argues on the importance of coaches. No, he changed it. It's always about coaches. It's 99% about coaches because they not only coach, they're the coach and GM. They bring the players in. And in a world that's crazier, college basketball, than it's ever been, it's the perfect time to have Shaka. Now, I'm not in charge, but I said I would have called it and said, you got a lifetime contract. You coach here forever. When you don't want to coach here anymore, something to stop. But until then, you're here forever. So you never have to worry about having a bad year. But given the dynamics and uncertainty, no one knows what's going on. Or if they do, they're not willing to tell anybody. He's the perfect coach as a representative of the school. Who wouldn't want? And I'd like to thank Texas for being idiots because he'd be a great representative for them. And he lost one game to Abilene Christian. I'd like to thank them as well because I will always believe that if they hadn't lost to Abilene Christian, Shaka wouldn't be here. Now, yes, I'll admit, I'm making all this stuff up. I don't know anybody about anything, but if you're in Texas and you lose to Abilene Christian in the tournament after winning the Big 12 Conference tournament, they're probably not happy. So all of that worked perfectly. Marquette gets the credit. And in this, all the factors involved, you just can't do better than Shaka Smart. And Marquette knows they're lucky. Fans, I mean, what changed? All of a sudden, we're not going to do anything special. And now, oh, we could do something special. One person.
Yeah, such a connector, the right coach.
And I love this because I say, like, Wisconsin are Marquette fans. Marquette fans have never been higher. Not only is our coach better, but he's smarter, too. I mean, you can't, the perfect blend of I mean, who would you want to represent your school, any school, other than Shaka?
Good degree. Right coach, right time.
Right, and you're going to win. Also, it's not, you're not sacrificing anything.
Yeah.
You're just deciding how much you're going to win, but you're going to win, and all the other things, they fit perfectly, so.
That power forward from Abilene Christian was shooting, I think, 52% from the free throw line. He made those two. And Wojo had been fired the week and was paid off. And then it was like 3 days later, the Texas Abilene Christian game is there, and the kid makes the two free throws. And then I start hearing from Texas people that are Marquette fans that, boy, they're not happy with Shaka down here. I thought, you've got to be kidding me. I couldn't believe how lucky we were that week.
Yeah, no, it was destiny, whatever you want to say. It was a huge break for Marquette, and to give Marquette credit, they jumped on it right away, and there were other options, as people remember, and they didn't waste any time. Shaka is available. He's our next coach.
Internal improvement from the year before. Shaka's first year, they surpassed expectations, but nothing like the next year. But you would see David Joplin. You start looking at Tyler Kolek. These weren't the same players as they were the year before. And for me, it was the Baylor game. That was the game that sent the flares up that this might be a special year. I just remember all the Big East officials who were there for the Gavitt games, the Big East against the Big 12, and all of a sudden people who thought Marquette was ninth now realized this team just beat Baylor, and we have a shot at maybe getting 5 teams in the NCAA.
Yeah, but there was no thought like they can win the Big East.
Right.
And when I asked Shaka that question, he said it was in the second half of the Purdue game. We're on the road, we're ahead, and he said that's when I thought this team could be good. Now, with coaches, you always have to wonder what they say when they say it. But there was certain truth to that, as good as Purdue was, and it just seemed that they couldn't finish. Well, then players elevated, starting with Tyler Kolek, and now all of a sudden they're able to score and have stretches of great scoring at any time in any games along with their defense. And so then you became one of the elite teams in the country.
He's fascinating to watch. Shockey is in his post-game press conference. He'll say, boy, you're picked to finish ninth and you're surpassing expectations. And he would say, I told our team that them predicting us ninth is a reflection of you, and it's a reflection on me as a coach. And so it's like, here we are bonding, and he does a great job of that. He seeks input every time they have a box where they put how I'm going to contribute to the game on the bench, or they do little motivational things. It's like it should be a corporate how-to motivation tape. That guy's amazing.
Yeah, people have copied it. I mean, he may have copied it from someone, but people are all using that in terms of what you need or what's the best way. How do you motivate kids today and things like that? But you can go the improvement. You think, well, all right, all these players have different roles. They have to be better this year. Everybody went from 3 points to 7, and it wasn't one. It was literally everyone. There was no way anybody could have known that so many of these players, when asked, would all elevate and make the team better, even though they lost so much from the previous season.
They lost Kerr, they lost Morcell, and they brought in Zach Reitzel to give kind of the experience, and then he hurt his knee right away. He never played. Right. It's just amazing. I know Danny Hurley when he came in the post game, he was saying that he couldn't believe that Marquette had the same starting lineup for the whole year. So they were fortunate in that respect, because I know UConn had like 12 different lineups or whatever the heck it was. But so you just go down the line, every one of those guys improved incredibly well.
Right. And they had more important roles, which required them to improve for the team to be as good as it was. Everybody, before the season started, just looked at who's coming back and what they did and go, not a whole lot there. Everything's gone. They may eventually get better, but to think individually almost every single player would be asked to do more and then would do more.
Sorry. Isn't that the mark of a great coach, though, is to get people to improve? I mean, that seems to be everybody. Well, you got to get this guy, that guy. He really built from within. But as you point out, fellas, the jump was very obvious.
Yeah, I always assume that means he was a pretty good judge of the talent of the players, because we don't have to mention names, but there are some people, Shock is not going to make that much better. I'm sorry. But, how he recruits, or all these players just were able to execute. And to me, it was the combination. The biggest change to me was that there were certain games in which they just struggled to score offensively. And then they lose games. And all of a sudden, with all these options now, from Kolek starting to all the others, now you have Kolek and Cam Jones, and then, just right there, you have all these different people. So if one guy isn't scoring that game, somebody else did, and all of a sudden, they became, to me, so much more of a weapon offensively at any point against any team.
You've been doing this for almost 20.
And the only time it didn't happen was Michigan State.
Right.
Because for whatever reason, they just turned the ball over more often. But that's how good the team was, both offensively and defensively.
And as you're well aware, an injured Tyler Kohler just wasn't himself, Kolick, and that's unfortunate. You've been doing it again almost a quarter century, Homer. Forever and a day. And he will go on into eternity. Have you ever had a regular season as fun as this? Perhaps
Well,
surprising as this? I know you're going final.
I'm not going to lie. Every game Dwayne Wade played better than this. Every game. George and I would look at each other and go, we don't know what he's going to do, but he'll do something.
Yeah.
Every game. But aside from
Record setting and what?
aside from Dwayne Wade, the stretch when Marquette went to Sweet 16, Elite 8, you look back, was amazing. But other than that, it was definitely the Jim McIlvaine team, which I believe his senior year in '94, I'd take them to play any Marquette team that Marquette has had since. They were so good, and that's back when everybody stayed around. And
Right.
and you know, they make the Sweet 16, and they're ahead of Duke at half, I think, by a couple. And then but anyway,
Wow, didn't they? Like
they just had
the two.
they had
something.
everything,
Yeah.
and a bench as well. So that was a special season because until then, everyone wondered, can Marquette ever be good? Like, not just, make the tournament, but, and that's sweet. The people old enough around, they'll never forget that season because that brought back the belief Marquette can be what Marquette once was, and that is a player of some significance. And to get to the Sweet 16 that year and to beat Kentucky, I think so. That's that season. After that, you always thought it could happen.
That was one of the, it had to be just incredible to be calling that game against Kentucky and watching Dwayne Wade go off. I mean,
Yeah, and that was special because people talk about rivalries at Marquette. The greatest rivalry ever was the Marquette wish to beat Kentucky.
Yeah.
From when George played in those. They would trade, I don't have to use all the words. They felt about Adolph Rupp, but there's no game even close to how great George Thompson felt after Dwayne Wade and Marquette. And I want to emphasize, put a whooping on Kentucky.
they did.
It was a party the second half.
It was amazing.
It was interesting at the banquet that year. They brought in Doc Rivers to speak, and Doc Rivers was coaching Orlando at the time, and I think they had the 17th pick or whatever. And Doc gets up and they say they have no idea how good this guy is, and he just pointed at Wade. He said, "I would do anything to trade up to get him, but I can't do it." And then he told the famous story where he was calling Pat Riley during the game, and Pat Riley was woofing, saying that Kentucky was going to take him, and he's on the Stairmaster or whatever. And then it got to be, it was pretty close. It was like 21, maybe 19 close, and then 45-21 Novak just started hitting everything, and they just blew him. And then Doc said that Riley wasn't picking up the calls, but he said Pat Riley knew how good he was at that game for what he was doing against the team, his team that he knew all about. So he knew that he wouldn't last past Miami in the draft.
Yeah, that Doc Kate, there's no one that thought he would get picked that early. There was discussions of where he would go, but that might have been the difference. I don't know that Pat Riley's ever talked about it. He said he talked to Crean, and my belief is that had he been available, the Bucks wouldn't have taken him.
I don't think
They didn't think he could shoot. I remember telling someone, clearly they listened to me, he's the best college player I've ever seen.
JD, didn't they, wasn't there the talk, you talked to a scout or something, he goes, Wade's got great hands. He catches the ball really well. He's going to be a good defender in the league and, kind of an average.
We argued about whether he'd be an all-star.
Yeah.
And when I said he's going to be an all-star, people thought I was crazy. But I'll admit, I didn't. I wish I could do it again and said he was going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Well, you saw it. Doc Rivers saw it, and Tom Crean saw it. Remember that news conference? We've talked about this on this program before. He said, you don't know what a privilege it is for you to have covered this man. He is going to be electric, outstanding. I think we thought there was a chance, but this soon or as soon as it happened, he just catapulted to the top overnight.
No one ever sent me any high school stats. And his last year in high school, I get this, like he was in some tournament where it was a weekend tournament. And he scored like 40 points, 30 rebounds, 12 blocks, 8 assists. So it's like, geez, I don't know.
Thank goodness for Prop 48, John does, eh?
Boy, he came in. Crean tells a story, and I was asking some DePaul people, how did he slip through the cracks? And it turned out that he had, when he signed with Marquette, Crean said he was walking down the halls at Richards, and the history teacher, who was also the football coach, saw him walk by the door, told the class to relax. He went out there, and he went up to Crean, and he said, this kid, he said he does all his schoolwork. He's one of the sharpest guys I've ever come across. For some reason, he can't do well on the exam. He just doesn't test well on that ACT. He said, but he unifies all the groups. He says the druggies, the cool kids, the geeks, they all gravitate to Wade. And I think he might have been in student government because he was bringing everybody together. He said, I want to tell you, Coach Crean, if you screw this kid up, I will make it my business that Marquette never gets another player from Chicago. I'm telling you, Crean is just looking at it like, wow. And Tim Buckley had told me, he said, John, I said, so how's this Wade guy doing? He said, I don't want to, blow this up or anything, but I went to this game the other day, and he made 3 moves that I don't think Vince Carter could make. And so I asked the DePaul people, and they said the DePaul women's coach was recruiting someone at Richards, and he would stay over for the men's game or the boys' game. And so he would come back to Kennedy, who was the coach of DePaul at the time, and he said, are you sure about that Wade kid? Have you seen him? I've been watching these games. And he said, we have Amari Sawyer coming in. He's number 1. We don't worry about it. It's all taken care of. Whoa. And every time they played DePaul, Wade would get his dander up, and he and Cordell Henry would be just supercharged. You could tap him on the shoulder, and I think he would have jumped 30 feet. They were so primed for payback.
Though I think, and again, I don't have any sources, but I think the loyalty that Wade felt toward Marquette is why he came to Marquette. And I'm not sure many other players who got the attention he started to get would have honored that. I think that's part of Dwayne Wade, because DePaul or whatever, by the time he was playing, I don't know the particulars. I'm assuming he could have gone just about anywhere in the country he wanted, but Marquette was the first. And the thing to know about that is, it's classic Tom Crean. He told him that he was coming to Marquette. We're committed. But he didn't have the approval to do it because he had to get the approval of Father Wild. I'm interviewing Father Wild in the last TV one when he retired. And I said, so what are you most proud of? And he goes, well, that I admitted Dwayne Wade. I went, what? What? Well, yeah, they had to come to me, and we'd never had a Prop 48. No, I don't know it was Prop 40. I think it was a different thing.
Yeah, I call it something else.
Because you could get the year back. If you graduated, you could play all 4 years. I'm like, well, tell me more. Yeah, Coach Crean came in. I said, but wait a minute. Hadn't he already told Dwayne Wade he was coming to Marquette? So it all worked out. So put a thumbs up to the loyalty of Dwayne Wade, and also the fact that Father Wild was there. And then, of course, it all starts with Tom Crean. He got him to come here.
Steve True, he is the homer. He is the voice of Marquette University basketball, along with his good friend Tony Smith. They have a highly rated radio sports talk show from 2 to 4, 94.5 ESPN Milwaukee. And Steve, I just can't get over the fact that Dwayne Wade never seemed to change. Now, you know him really well. Maybe he remembers where he came from, but he's still loyal, as you say, to the university, to people. He'll look at you, remember your first name. His humility, given the stardom that he achieved, all the fame, all the fortune.
Yeah, I don't know him that well. I knew him when he played because he was well to talk with anyway. He remembers me because when they were taping the games, the Bradley Center, and he'd watch them. They didn't have audio from TV, so they would put in our audio. And yeah, I'm not sure anybody's. I didn't listen to the Heat, but nobody sold Dwayne Wade any more than I did. But then, he came by, and I remember him because at the end, we were doing an interview. It might have been the tournament. He says, well, haven't you asked those questions before? Don't you have any new questions? And I said, yeah. All right, I got you new. What would you do if you weren't playing basketball? And the reason I remember it because he said, well, Denzel Washington's my hero. He said, I'd be an actor. And I remember thinking, you can't even do pregame interviews that well. How were you going to? I didn't say that. And then lo and behold, he was everything he said he would have been.
Right.
He just waited to do it until after basketball. He has everything that, so he was right on that too. I'm glad I didn't respond and say, okay, if you say so, but.
Okay, we could talk about Wade forever. I want to take you back, though, to Shaka and company. What can Marquette fans, Steve, expect in the future? Can they reach the level of being in that tournament every year and hopefully starting to make the step toward what a lot of people thought they might do, right? First, they were picked to finish last in the Big East or thereabout, and then experts had them go into the Final Four. Obviously, that didn't happen.
Yeah, they're going to be good, and he's always had the ability in certain seasons for his team to get on a real streak. So yeah, I will be disappointed if they don't at some point in his tenure make a Final Four. But I think you can always be hopeful, and they're going to be good, and then we'll just see how good, and that's going to depend. He talked about how last year's team they all cared about each other so much. And I said, well, but we care about each other. No, I said, well, but don't you tell every team that? He goes, yeah, but they don't all listen as well. So he's given credit for this particular group, and I've always thought Oso Ighodaro is a huge part of that because he's an incredibly talented player, improved as much as any player I can remember. I mean, I think he just has a style and approach that that I can see how his position importance on the team would create kind of the what Shaka was talking about. But yeah, there's no guarantee every year is going to be great. I don't think anybody understands college basketball now in terms of who's playing where and all the transfers. So you have all these unknowns. So to me, in that world, I don't think you can do better than Shaka because he cares about the relationships with the kids. I think they feel comfortable with him. So given the craziness, he's also a good coach to have at that time.
Yeah.
But there's no way anybody can know for sure. I guess you just figure the great schools are going to still be great, but there's a confidence, there's a happiness, there's a joy about Marquette basketball with their fans that they haven't had in a while because they not only know the teams are pretty good, but they're proud that Shaka Smart is their coach.
Joy, I love the word, and it is appropriate, John.
And in recruiting, you look at what the recruits he picks out, and they're not highly rated. When you turn the tape on, you look at them, whoa, this guy looks pretty good. And then a year later, they're a lot more highly rated than they were before. I asked Greg Elliott, and Greg Elliott was my guy. Whenever there was a clouds around, and no fog, he'd cut right through it. Tell me about Shaka Smart. This was probably 3 weeks into his tenure. And he said, I think he really likes really tall, lanky, athletic players. That's right. That's my comment. And I thought, well, thanks, Greg, for that. I appreciate that.
Is that Oso?
Oso and Oso and Omax came in, or Oso was improving, and then Oso, when Oso walked into when Shaka said that when he first interviewed players that were there, and Greg Elliott came in, folded his leg, and just said, "All right, what's your deal?" And Shaka was like, usually people are intimidated. People are like, Greg's like, "All right, why should I stay here? I mean, what's your deal?" And then Oso came in, and Shaka had recruited Oso at Texas, and he said, "Wow, have you gotten bigger?" So he knew, all about him, and that. When I look back at last year, I told David Joplin that the one thing I'll always remember is, as a freshman, David Joplin didn't understand what defense was. He just didn't have the instincts at all. And at the end of last year in New York City, he was playing Sonogo against UConn with 4 fouls, bumping and banging and down.
Nobody left to play because there are other foul issues.
I said, that was amazing that you stayed in the game and that you could go toe-to-toe with that guy because nobody else could the rest of the way.
No, if he had none, they wouldn't have won.
Right. I said that's the one amazing performance I'll always remember because talking about unexpected was David Joplin playing defense like that.
Yeah, he knew he could score. He was a big part of that offense where he had a number of different weapons because there were games in which he was the guy who scored. He didn't have to score every game, but there were games in which his shooting was necessary to win.
One of our posters came on our message board and made this point, which it was kind of hiding in plain sight, but if you look at Marquette's record in the Big East last year, they won it in regular season at 17-3. But if you added the 3 games that they won in the tournament, that's 20-3. And UConn was 14-6, I believe, and they were 1-1 in the tournament, so they are 15-7. That meant that Marquette was 5.5 games better in conference than the national champion. That's amazing.
Yes. Yes, because whenever the matchup was against UConn, it went well. And part of it was, who's the kid, Hawkins?
They pressed him.
Well, and he shot terribly in the games they beat him. I mean,
yeah.
bad. And so some of that had to be the defense of who's guarding him. But yeah, other than the game when UConn made everything at home, Marquette had them like nobody else did in the country.
Are you surprised that UConn came alive the way they did? I mean, they didn't just win games in the tourney. They totally dominated. But yet you felt even back when they were struggling, they had the piece.
Well, yeah, in the beginning of the year, they were as high as number 2. No, they won the national title because Marquette beat them. I don't know. He doesn't have to tell. Hurley doesn't have to tell me. They changed the way they played. They were horrible offensively. They started the kid Jackson. All of a sudden, they brought him outside, and they were just moving the ball differently. I mean, all they did against Marquette, even when Marquette had no players, they're just somebody said there's like a windshield wiper. They're taking 30 seconds to score when they could throw the ball inside and score in 2 seconds because Marquette didn't have anybody left inside other than the job. And yet I watched him in the tournament, and that guy's out there handling the ball, and he didn't do any of that. So, yeah, if anybody runs into Hurley, he can just admit it. And I think they changed what they did offensively.
That's a great observation.
Handling the ball.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's true, but that's what I'm living with.
I like it. I'll join your club. This has been an amazing time together. It's gone very quickly. Steve the Homer True, I could embarrass him by asking, but instead I'll just embarrass him by saying, and John, you know this, he has used his platform all these years to raise so much money for so many great causes as the finest auctioneer, right?
Best auctioneer in the area.
And that is, yeah, and beyond, quite sake, yeah, absolutely. Your dad is a proud man. He was quite a speaker himself, that's for sure. We are grateful, of course, to Craig Caston, Moonlight Grand, proud sponsor of the MarquetteHoops.com basketball show. We look forward to being with you again. For our producer, Jason Ruck, and the historian, John Dodds. With the Homer, I'm Tom Pippins. Thanks, everybody, for being with us. See you next time, and God bless. And by the way, as always, go Golden Eagles.